So many jazz piano students get frustrated and stuck at what I call the advanced beginner stage. You might know some chord voicings, some rhythms, some jazz theory, and you can play through a few standards, but then without any warning at all, your progress just comes to a standstill. So how do we break through this barrier to start improving again? Well, let me show you what has worked wonders for me. Typically, when we're learning to play the piano, we think about progressing through 3 different levels: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Now, the advanced beginner is this transition point between the beginner and intermediate steps. And as an advanced beginner, you would know your chords, your inversions, and probably some basic voicings. You would have a decent swing feel, some comping rhythms under your fingers, and they would be able to put these ideas together into songs. We might have even memorized a few licks that we can drop in whenever we're feeling like it. But an advanced beginner cannot play freely. You cannot play untethered from the sheet music. Every time you play the song, you play it exactly the same way. We can't comp in a band and be conversational and responding to what the band is doing around us. And we probably cannot improvise a meaningful solo. Logically, you would think that with enough practice, we could put more hours into the piano and we could push ourselves through the beginner stage and into the intermediate stage. But this is not always the case. See, I like to think about the advanced beginner stage as being this 300-foot cliff that we have to climb in order to get to the top. The difference between the beginner and intermediate stages is more than just a matter of how difficult the playing is. I want you to think about the beginner stage as being the time when we learn a whole bunch of formulas. I want you to imagine that we're carrying a big bag around with us, and every time that we learn something new, we have to take that thing and put it into the bag. So when we learned our shell voicings, we had to pick that up and put it in the bag. Then we got our 4-note ruleless voicings. Those go in the bag too. Then we went into comping rhythms like our Charleston pattern, reverse Charleston, red garland. These are all formulas, and we toss them into the bag. Anytime that we memorize a new lick or some kind of harmonic movement, it's just more formulas to weigh down the bag that we're carrying. But as this bag keeps getting bigger and bigger and heavier to carry, we oftentimes, if we're honest with ourselves, we don't even play half of what we've put in there, right? We definitely have our favorite chord voicings, our favorite rhythms, and those become our go-to techniques that we just play all the time. If we can manage to climb to the top of this 300-foot cliff, the skills that we learn are actually going to unlock many of these ideas that we've stored in the bag but haven't learned how to really play fluently yet. As we stand here at the bottom of the cliff looking for a route up to the top, I can see that there are 3 different barriers in our way that we're going to have to overcome. The first barrier is for us to really learn how to hear the jazz language. The second barrier is for us to become comfortable in taking creative risks while we're playing. The third barrier is the most difficult and most challenging, but it's going to build on top of these creative risks that we've taken, and we're going to be able to expand on those ideas to play for an extended period of time, like soloing over the head 3 or 4 times through. About 20 years ago, my band went on a short concert tour to Japan. Now, I didn't speak any Japanese, which was kind of a problem, so I memorized a few important phrases out of a book, just basic survival stuff. I couldn't deviate at all from these phrases that I had memorized. If the person that I was trying to talk to responded in a way that I didn't understand, I was completely hosed. This is similar to the plateau of being an advanced beginner. We've memorized all of these formulas to try and get by, but we can't really speak freely or have a conversation in the jazz language. At this point in our journey, all of the ideas that we play originate from a formula. These are music theory ideas that we have stuck in our head as knowledge. But as we become intermediate players, our mindset about this is going to shift entirely. We are going to shift, instead of playing from formulas, to playing what we hear in our mind's ear. When we were playing just from formulas, we didn't really have to be creative because the formulas and all the rules that came with it told us what we could and couldn't play. But as we progress, we need to rely less on the rules and more on the ideas that we hear in our ear. We need to be able to hear better ideas than we can now. And the best way to do that is through active listening. I don't mean pouring yourself a bourbon, putting your feet up, and listening to jazz at the end of the day. I'm talking about hard work, sitting at your instrument, listening to recordings, pausing, rewinding, slowing them down, identifying the little moments that interest you, and deconstructing and transcribing those ideas. And then being able to sit down and play them. You have to actually go through and do this work yourself. You cannot go to Google and search for the transcription and then study the transcription. That leaves you in beginner mode. We need to actually train our ears to be able to hear and identify these things so that when we're improvising in the future, our ears will be able to invent similar phrases. But as we do this over and over, we're going to get better at identifying and hearing these ideas. And importantly, we're going to get good at taking the ideas that we hear in our ear and getting them out through our fingers and into the piano. This process is so challenging, but yet so vitally important that it's the foundation for why I built the Jazz Library community. You can become a member over there for free, and when you do, every Wednesday I'm going to send you the transcribed phrase that I've been working on that week, and best of all, every Friday afternoon we get together live to learn a new technique together and just kind of support and encourage each other along the way. All of this is available for you for free, forever. You just got to use the link down in the description to sign up, and when the time comes and you're ready, you can upgrade to a premium account to get access to all of our video training and all the video replays of our past workshops. As we continue our ascent up the cliff, we're going to get past the second barrier by taking some small, intentional, creative risks. The emphasis here is on small risks. What we're going to do is take a tune and we're going to play it through using one of the formulas that we already know so well. So here I'm going to use the red garland comping pattern in my left hand. Now taking my highlighter, I'm going to just find one small moment in this lead sheet and I'm going to highlight it. When I get to the highlighted section, it's my signal to create something new. Now we are not going to lean on these formulas at all. We're just going to trust that through listening to jazz that we can have a creative idea in our head and we're going to try our best to play it. And once we get through this little highlighted section, we're just going to go right back to the formula we're so comfortable with. So as we repeat over these changes, we're going to encounter this highlighted section multiple times. And every time that we hit it, we're going to try a different idea. It doesn't have to be drastically different. It can be just a little bit different than the last one. But we want to do something new and unique every single time. Now, after we've done this a few times, we're going to erase this highlighted section and we're going to highlight a different place in the tune and then go back through and rinse and repeat. I find this approach to be so much less intimidating because it really gives us permission to mess up and play something we don't like. We know that we're just going to loop right back and get another chance at it anyway. Now, as we keep climbing past the second barrier, we're getting closer to the top of the cliff. Now, of course, we've only been improvising short little segments, but ultimately, right, we want to be able to play spontaneously and freely for a longer period of time. Now, one approach we could use to get there would be just to fill our lead sheet with more of these highlighted sections. Maybe we start making these highlighted sections longer. I mean, this is something you could work through, but what I think you're going to experience is that the solos we create will start to sound random. It's going to sound like we're just noodling around. But if we want to be cool in our improvisation, we want to tell a story with it. We want our ideas to feel intentional and conversational so that the audience can follow what we're trying to say. I actually like to focus on this a different way, and I think about two different factors for us to consider. The first one is that we need to play something that sounds familiar to the listener. That means we're going to create some kind of a motif that could be rhythmic or melodic, but the audience is going to recognize that motif and be able to follow it as we play. And so this is going to make everything that you play sound like it was on purpose. The second factor here is that we need to play with variety, because if we don't, the audience is going to get bored. So we need to take this motif that we invented and we need to evolve it. We're going to maybe change its rhythm, change where it is on the instrument that we're playing it, higher or lower. Maybe we need to play it in a different tonality. So it's kind of like we're creating a little mini theme and variations on these little motif ideas. When we do this, this one idea gets so much life. You can fill an entire time through the head with just the exploration of one idea. So if we can come up with 3 or 4 ideas, we could solo over the tune several different times, and all the while our audience is going to be engaged. Now, as we get to the top of the cliff, we reach up and we pull ourselves over the edge. We lay back looking at the sky and we realize all of these formulas that got us to the base of the cliff weren't enough to get us up to the top. We had to develop some new skills along the way. But at the same time, all those formulas that we learned now serve a new purpose to us. They are now there to help us understand the jazz language better so that we can invent new ideas out of thin air in our mind's ear and let them flow out into our playing. To get deeper into this and build an even more solid foundation, I want you to watch this video next. It's a simple 5-minute exercise. You'll be able to do it the first time, but when you're done, it will boost your soloing confidence.